All right, class. Hope you are doing well. I'm going to try and be, I guess, as brief as I possibly can, but I have a lot to cover in this lesson. Okay, so here's a couple of things. Our term ends March 3rd, Friday, March 3rd. You know that. You're like, don't remind me. I know it ends. But here's the deal. Okay? I'm going to give us an extra week. Okay, so even though your term officially ends March 3rd, I don't have to submit grades until March 10th. Okay, so you have, if you need the extra time, you have until 5 p.m. on Friday, March 10th to get everything in. Okay, here's the beauty of a class like this. We're working independently for the most part. Yes, you have an instructor that's kind of overseeing your content. But even if you're in the face-to-face version of this class, you still have some pretty significant autonomy and freedom to kind of get things done. Now, here's the deal. When you look at the syllabus has dates, things that are due on certain time frames and all that. Those dates are there to keep, it's for self-pacing, right? It's to help you stay on task. Because what happens is, let's say something was due last week and you didn't get it done, you still have something that's due this week. So now all of a sudden, instead of working on one project, you're working on two projects simultaneously, and that makes life all the more complicated. Okay? So if you're behind, and some of you are, if you're behind, we got to get on it, right? We got to get on it, but just know that you have that extra week, okay? So instead of March 3rd, you have until March 10th. But you have a lot. Some of you, I still haven't received a full articulation of competence from. Some of you, I haven't received your literature review, right? So I have to receive these. I had hoped that I'd made that clear, that I have to have them. It's not to go on your website. It has to go, you need to send me, I've said that before, via email these documents, okay? You have your philosophy of leadership, and I've received that from some, so that's helpful. That's good, and I'll give feedback on that. Because here's the deal. The reason that we do all of this is because, yes, it is a project, but really what we're looking for is I want you to kind of think, man, what did I do? I learned so much. And so here's how I want you to think about this final colloquium presentation, okay? So, and I'm going to give you a little bit of layout here, and I'll talk some more in a bit, but basically this is it. When you came into our program, okay, when you came into your program, when you started the Master of Arts in Leadership graduate program at Azusa Pacific University, okay, you, I'm sure, thought one way, or you had maybe several different thoughts about leadership, right? So you came in having seen something on, whether it was the large stage or position or power or title or salary, you had this idea of, in your mind, what leadership was. And if you're anything like me, here's the beauty of education. If you're anything like me, one of the things that happened to me is I actually did this program and started about 11 years ago. So I finished about 10 years ago, actually. And when I came into the program, I had all these thoughts in my mind. Like I knew these things. They sounded good. I thought, man, that sounds like a good leadership idea. There's probably something to that, but I didn't know how to necessarily articulate what it was that I thought, and I didn't know how to give kind of words to theory. And so I got into these courses, and I started to learn about leadership, and I started to realize, whoa, these things that I had been thinking weren't just good ideas, and they were that. For the most part, I have a lot of bad ideas, but from a leadership standpoint, they weren't just good ideas like care for people, right? So trust people. Culture is important, right? Working together, teamwork is important, all of these things. But I got into classes and I started to learn and read and have discussions and do assignments, and all of a sudden, the things that were up here, I'm in a book, and now I'm given some words. Oh, there's actually theory that supports those ideas that have just been kind of floating around in my mind. This is amazing. So now all of a sudden, I felt like I learned, I understood that my practice, my leadership practice, my leadership thinking was actually supported by leadership theory. So that theory then informed my practice and my thought even more, and my thought and my practice informed my theory, and back and forth, back and forth. I had a philosophy of leadership. I just didn't know how to articulate it. And so then what happened is, you probably heard the quote that the illiterate of the 21st century are not those that cannot read and write. No, the illiterate of the 21st century are those that cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And so what happens in education, I hope, is that we learn things, we have learned things on our own, and then we get into classes like our leadership program, and we unlearn some stuff. And I hope that you have not just kind of felt like you've been spun off to figure it out on your own, but that you have been supported and challenged to relearn some things that perhaps you had learned beforehand that maybe weren't entirely correct, or maybe were only partially correct, right? So you came in and you were here, and you're going to go out and you are now here, right? So if you think of your final presentation, what it is, it's really a retroactive gap analysis. You are looking at where was I, where am I, and how did I get there, okay? So if you think about the philosophy of leadership that you've hopefully working on writing up, if you haven't already done that, I've received that from some of you, that's what your final presentation is. It's you articulating what your philosophy of leadership is and how you got there based upon the experience that you had in the program. So I was here, I thought about it like this, now I'm here and I thought about it like this. Think about your Achieving Styles Inventory from 501, your aspirational Achieving Styles Inventory, and then now again 595, your Achieving Styles Inventory. So you said at one point, you started the program where you took the ASI the first time, I am here from a leadership behavior standpoint. And then you took the aspirational, most of you did anyway, and you said, I want to be here. So now, fast forward to the end of the program, and you have this comparison to say, okay, so I was here, now I'm here, I wanted to be here, I am here. Am I where I said I wanted to be? And do the individuals that I had complete the 360 on my behalf, are they able to support and say that I am where I wanted to be? And where are the discrepancies? So what you're looking at then, which is the reason why you did that matrix to connect our 5 competencies up here and our 9 leadership behaviors down here, was because as you look at those, the intersection thereof, when you're doing your final presentation, you're talking about philosophy, talking about where you are, what you've experienced, but then you're going to talk about your growth, okay? And you're going to talk about how you grew in 2 of those leadership competencies. So this is where I see the most growth in me personally, okay? I was here, now I'm here. I'm going to give you a rubric that's going to help to articulate kind of where you are from a level of novice all the way to accomplished. Let me say this, and I'll say it again. Approach stating that you are accomplished in any area with great fear and trepidation. Because even those that are teaching these classes, I don't know that they can fully say that they're accomplished. Because accomplished, that's a significant statement. Like I have arrived. I am fully accomplished. And yet, I don't think that any of us can say that we're fully accomplished. Even the people that hold the highest office or the most important influential positions or have the best corner office, they're not necessarily accomplished in everything. They're becoming accomplished. They are growing into that, but I don't know that we can ever say that we are fully there. So that's my one caution. Approach that with fear and trepidation. Okay, don't speak down on yourself. Right? Don't think less of yourself. But just talk about the process and where you feel like you have grown the most. And then I want you to talk about one area where you feel like you still have the most room for growth and development. Okay? So that's your kind of 3 main focus. Support those arguments, give us examples, papers, talk about professional endeavors, relationships. Talk about things that people have said, whether it be your supervisor, your colleagues, maybe a comment that was made in a paper. Maybe you have some video clip that you think, oh, I love when we watched this video and it was so thought-provoking that it got me thinking about fill in the blank. Use all of that. So that's why you had that artifact kind of brainstorms week, or was it last week, to think about all those different realities. Okay, so there's that. And then you'll talk about what's next. So where do you go from here? So some of you might say, you know what, my next step is I'm going to go take a long nap. I've been in this program for 3 years and I'm just ready to Z out, right? So, or some of you are going to say, I think I want to do doctoral studies. Talk about what that looks like. Some of you are going to say, you know what I want to do? I want to read a book that's not assigned. That's what I want to do. So talk about the next steps. Please, 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 and I don't think you would do this, but I've had other students do this in the past. Don't say, you know what, what's next? I have no idea. Because we all have some inkling of an idea. So from a professional standpoint, talk about where you're headed next, or at least what you're thinking about doing next, okay? do some thanks. Make sure you offer up citations and references for all the things you've included in your presentation, and we'll wrap it up. In your presentation, your final colloquia, which you'll do online, we'll talk more about the logistics of that. You will talk for somewhere around 25 to 30 minutes max, okay? You will share all of that information in that. So you basically, you're like, oh my goodness, so what you're saying is I got to sum up the whole program in 25 to 30 minutes? Yeah, kinda. I mean, in a non-scary, intimidating way. And I think that even saying that, it's still probably scary and intimidating. But yes, that's essentially what you're doing. And you're going to talk about the arc of your growth and development. But keep in mind those parameters. I was here when I started, and now I'm here. How did I get from here to here? We had competencies, we had courses, we had discussions. I had professional endeavors that I was doing along the way, ways that I was able to put into practice. See, the goal of an education in specifically something leadership related is that what you learn on a Tuesday, you could very feasibly put into practice on a Wednesday. This should never be just this theoretical kind of cognitive experience that we have up here at 60,000 feet. This needs to be a brass tacks, rubber hits the road, proof is in the pudding, practice what you preach or is preached to you program. It has to be tangible and practical. This has to be as much theoretical as it is praxis-based, right? You have to have both theory and practice and theory, not just theory or practice. It has to be both. And so as you think back on your experience, what did you put into practice and how did that help you to learn? Okay. So who will be here? It will be myself as your instructor of record. And it'll be Dr. Ed Barron, who's our program chair and our department chair and program director for the MA in Leadership. And we may have a couple of other friends join us, some other faculty. But this will basically be you in an office, in a living room, something where there's a professional appeal to it. So you will probably, much like here, have your neck up, like you're seeing with me. And here's what I'm going to ask you to do from a logistical standpoint. What I'm going to ask you to do is to develop your presentation in Google Slides. Okay. If you've not done that before, it's very simple, and I would encourage you to start messing around with Google Slides to get familiar with it. It is straightforward. It is almost exactly like you're developing out of PowerPoint. But here's why I'm going to ask you to do it in Google Slides. And it is because you can easily transmit, so you can share your presentation, not just share your screen, but you can actually share your presentation with people that are onlooking. So you'll share it with myself, and I'll have it on a larger screen in my office, and we'll come around the screen, and we will actually watch you present. And while you're clicking through the slides, it is going forward on the presentation slides on your screen as well as mine. Okay, so if you've already started to develop and you've done it in PowerPoint, that's perfectly okay. You can actually upload your slides into Google Slides. Maybe you're just more comfortable developing in PowerPoint, then just do it in PowerPoint and then upload it to Google Slides. Okay, but that's what I would ask you to do for purposes of this distance-based presentation, is to develop in Google Slides. And then you should have received an email, I think I mentioned that, from Myra from Leadership and Organizational Psychology, for you to identify when it is that you will be presenting. So you need to drop dead deadline is you have to respond by March 3rd, okay, to pick the date and the time that you'll present. Okay, I know that most of them are during the day, but they are the same with us here on campus. There's one exception, and I'll just say this out loud, Ryan. We may need to look at some options for you, given that you are, not just in a different U.S. time zone, but you've got some other time parameters. But we can talk about that offline if we need to. Okay, so I'll talk more about this. I'll do another video next week, but continue just to plow through. I'll have your papers back to you if you're waiting on things to return from me. And if you're still kind of struggling to get things completed on time, let's talk about that as well. Okay. One thing I will mention is an incomplete in our course is not an option. So this late in the game, if I hadn't heard, as far as like some extenuating health circumstances, work and travel and moving and all those things, they don't constitute a rationale for granting an incomplete. So things are due at the very, very latest by 5 p.m. on Friday, March 10th, but that's a whole extra week than we usually would give in this class, and I can do that because it's a small number and I'm working independently with you. Okay. So any questions, call me, email me. Would love to talk more. Hope you're having a great week, and we will continue this conversation, and we'll see how things shake out as we have this next, really now at this point, 2.5 weeks together. See you soon.